Hi y'all, and welcome back to the garden. I want to take you around and show you a few things right now. The 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 hydrangea hedge is looking incredible, and that's a great name for it. It is in its 5th year. I've showed it to you many times, and it is glorious this year. Tons of blooms, standing really upright from that staking that I did earlier this year. But first, I wanted to show you this jade. I've had this jade for 4 years, probably at least. It's typically stayed in the basement under my grow lights because in the house, it needs more light than I have windows that are available to make it grow really well. So I put it under grow lights and it has really nice compact growth. I actually sat down last year sometime. I cut it back severely and you can kind of tell where I cut it because it's really bunched up on the new growth there, but it had gotten really leggy. And after I moved under the grow lights, it's doing a really good job. But I think it's a wonderful little centerpiece for this table here. Everything's looking really good. These begonias are blooming up really good. The drip I put out here, awesome. Not had to water these things since, and everything's looking really good. This is a little hottie hydrangea from first edition shrubs that I stuck in the center of these, and some proven winners annuals. The ferns are looking great, also getting plenty of water. There may be a birds nesting in this one, I'm not sure. I've seen some finches go in and out of there. But I also added a lot of my other basement plants down here to these steps, which I think is really nice. This is another one you may have never seen. It is a blue agave, really thorny, kind of dangerous to move around, but got it done. These prickly things really stick in you. You can come in and like pop off these or chop them off at the end, which is something I might do just to provide a little more protection. But even these side ones here are pretty rough. But we have an olive tree that looks rough, dried out a little bit in the basement, monstera, aloe, violet, a yucca, another jade that I kind of rooted myself from cuttings of the other one. Really interesting coloration right here. And I have a snake plant. This is a type of ficus, a baby of the baby agave, and then just a house plant here, which is just completely in leca. These do incredibly well in leca. You may be wondering what these little balls are on top of my houseplants. I put them on nearly all of my houseplants because it helps with both gnats and to conserve water. So you can plant completely in leca, some things. So like this right here, this pothos is planted completely in leca. They do pretty well just growing in water. But the other stuff has soil and leca on top of it to help conserve some of that moisture and prevent any fungus gnat issues. Now let's take a look at the real garden. By the way, leca is LECA. It stands for Lightweight Expanded Clay Aggregate. And it became pretty popular a few years ago, but people have been growing in it for a really long time. And it's essentially clay that's been heated up and kind of expanded a little bit like popcorn. And it contains all these crevices and nooks and crannies to hold water, which plant roots latch onto, and then you have a great growing medium for some types of plants. You do have to water it more often usually than you would soil. Depends on the plant really, but it's been a good alternative for me. And if you have some plants that have fungus gnat issues regularly, you might consider transitioning completely to leca, but do your own research there because I'm not exactly an expert on leca. I know I just have grown like monsteras and pothos and leca really well. Got to come and cut the grass this morning and all of this clover. This is the mini clover. So I've mentioned this just a slight bit in a video about a month or so ago. I would probably not plant mini clover again. I would probably just plant regular clover. There is some dispute online whether mini clover is actually mini, and it does get really large. I mean, you can see how large this is, and I actually cut this back probably a few weeks ago. So it does get really tall. This bed gets plenty of sun to make all of these things happy, and it's still kind of tall. So I'm gonna come through and just weed eat this down. Won't damage it, it'll come right back. I did that a few weeks ago. It has done really well as a weed suppressant though. So if you want a weed suppressant in your garden, I highly recommend it. Of course, critters can hide in it. So if you have like poisonous snakes, there was actually a baby bird hiding in it the other day, but just be aware that if you're going to plant it, you still need to keep it trimmed. If it's not getting like a ton of sun and it can grow up, you don't want to be stepping on a snaky snake in the garden. But everything's looking really good. I'm getting some peppers on. I need to come in and tie these up and stake them. They're starting to get quite large. See if we can bend that around there right quick. But there's like tiny, tiny baby peppers on all of these pepper plants, and all of them are falling over. Yes, need to come out here today if I have time to stake all of these. Haven't been out here much this week because I had to do some traveling for work, go to a conference, and everything's looking kind of crazy. This has gone to seed. This is a collard, I think, and needs to be removed and cut back. Something is eating on my kale, but I don't tend to spray it, although this one's looking really bad, so I might have to put some neem oil or some caterpillar spray on here, some organic things, because this is almost unusable. But kale that doesn't get bothered so much, and I really love this one, is this variety right here. This is Ragged Jack, and it is delicious. It's one of my favorite kales. I'm not a huge fan of the lacinato or dinosaur kale, but this stuff doesn't get bothered by insects quite as much in my experience, and it's just really, really succulent leaves. But everything's looking good. Dahlia's getting lots more dahlia blooms in the veggie garden. Really beautiful. And I never came through and tied these up either, so I need to do that as well so that they don't fall over and start breaking. But they're holding up pretty well, so we may see, since they're in a better location than they were last year, if these stay upright a little more rather than me tying them. I know I need to tie some of them because they're not as strong, but these stems right here are really thick, so they might be okay. We're starting to get some more perennial rebloom. Some dianthus right here starting to rebloom. These Armeria bloodstone thrift are starting to rebloom, getting the coneflowers to finally come out and bloom. This is Peter Cottontail yarrow, which I really like. It is kind of a spreader a little bit. It hasn't been too vigorous yet, but this has been its first full year in the ground. It might get a little more vigorous and have to be removed. I try and keep tabs on vigorous plants and make sure they're not getting totally out of control. But it's different because it's really like got these puffy flowers on it, which I think is just darling. And this might bloom earlier this year, this hibiscus. It usually blooms in July, but it looks kind of like, that may be a leaf, but it looks kind of like a bud to me. So they're shorter than usual this year, but it got warm so early that it's possible we could be getting blooms at the end of June. Looking like it to me anyway. The rose is still trying its best here. This container, guys, I finally refilled this device, or this bucket, sterilite container, whatever it is. Earlier this week, it had gone almost 2 weeks without needing to be refilled, and this container is still looking awesome. So we got the saffron finch, the pink chiffon, or pink cashmere, sorry, verbena, safari dust James Britannia. This is the Bermuda Beach Supertunia. Just everything mixing really nicely in this container. It's getting really, really large. Everything's looking a little better. We had really, really hot weather. In the past week or so, we've had lows in the mid-50s and highs in the mid-70s to even high 60s. Which has given the garden a nice reprieve after the rain we had and the drought we had, really, and we got some rain last week too. So the combination of rain and lower temperatures really helped these perennials and shrubs kind of kick it back into gear just a little bit without drying out substantially. We've got the rose. This is Teasing Georgia that's coming back into bloom, or it's still blooming right now. I need to cut and deadhead some spent blooms here, but it's really beautiful and it smells really nice. All right, guys, it's time for the showstopper. This is the 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 hydrangea hedge right now. This is really middle of June. It's prime. These blooms continue to get bigger though, so they're not as big as they normally are right now, but they'll, like I said, they'll continue to grow And surprisingly, they start out kind of small like this, and then they just get bigger and bigger and bigger. So we still got a ways to go. In a couple weeks, it'll be completely bloomed out, probably end of June. But right now, it is the very middle of June, and it is gorgeous. Check out these Let's Dance Can Do hydrangeas. These are looking awesome. Really impressed. Look how big these florets are. So we'll see how well they rebloom, but they've just got a ton of buds on them and it just keeps producing them. So I think this is going to be a really nice variety. I would love to see how this one reblooms over winter in our area, because typically hydrangeas like these come from a greenhouse, so they're going to bloom really, really good their first year. But over winter, if we have a really rough winter, the buds will die. But this is a reblooming hydrangea, so they should come back and rebloom perfectly fine. But these may have been exposed a little more in winter at the garden center because they may have been grown outside and they're still reblooming really, really well because we had such a rough winter around here. Even though I could not turn these blue, even though I added some soil acidifier, I really think it matches really nicely with these sun patients that I planted out here. Really, really cool. Because I was out of town, I did not have an opportunity to come and weed this bed, so I just need to take my little cobra head weeder and come pull up the tiny weeds that are growing around these begonias here. But these have thickened up so much. I really love this. I'll be repeating this next year somewhere in the garden. Maybe the same location. This is a little lime punch hydrangea. Look at those blooms it's already putting on it in the middle of June. So it must be a earlier blooming one than traditional limelight or little lime or limelight prime. So looking really nice right here too. Everything's so lush. I just need to come through and pull some weeds here and there that have popped up. The hostas are staying pretty happy with the drip irrigation sprayers that I showed you a few videos ago. And then we have this container. The buds are still progressing on these hydrangeas. This container is looking really good too. I just like showing you the same things from week to week because the progression within a week's time during this time of year can be so much. These are tiny. I always say this, these are tough stuff, aha, and they are tiny. They only get 1 to 2 foot tall and wide, but they're blooming really well for me. This is a reblooming mountain hydrangea. You can see it's going to have like an open center a little bit. These have not completely bloomed out yet, so we're just getting our first bloom, but they have huge florets and they continue to grow. You can see how big this one is right here, but they almost look like lilies when they're done because they get so large. So I'll keep you updated on those and show you how they look, but they're doing really good this year. And these were moved last year, transplanted from the backyard, so they're really enjoying the space, and this may be a really good variety for me to repeat somewhere else as a nice hydrangea border, a low border. This is tiny quickfire that I showed you a couple weeks ago. You can see it's already getting blooms as well this early. Really nice, super early blooming paniculata hydrangea that you don't have to worry about producing blooms for you. This bed is looking pretty good. Also some weeds that need to be pulled that I've neglected for a couple weeks. I did get a bloom on the magnolia and it is all bloomed out. You can see the head of it right here. I may get some more, I'm not sure. It's putting out a ton of growth now that it's cooled off a little bit. All these brand new leaves here. I will show you a picture of the bloom online or on the screen, and it was gorgeous. And it smelled really, really wonderful. If anyone's wondering what that is called a dog vomit mold or something like fungus, and it's perfectly fine. It just means the soil and the mulch is really healthy. It sometimes develops after you have mulch, but you can scrape it away or just leave it and it'll kind of disappear on its own. Oftentimes I just leave it. If it's not too big and it'll disappear. If it's a really large clump, it may not disappear and you may actually want to go ahead and remove that. Here's this impressionist rose. These are about to bloom out too, but the color, even though it's about to bloom out, is incredible. And here's a annual sunflower that I planted. I can't remember the name of this variety. I got it from 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲, but it is putting out a ton of blooms and will be a really nice statement piece in this area through the coming summer. All right, y'all, that is a quick update of the garden. I've been trying to shoot, or my goal would be to shoot 2 videos a week, but I just haven't been able to get into it this year yet. Life has been incredibly busy, but I'm gonna try and do 2 videos a week as the summer progresses, because things will start changing a lot more frequently. I don't know that I have any more large projects right now. It's going to be mostly maintenance mode, making sure everything's watered, which nearly everything is on drip except those new plants I put out on the patio from the basement. So there's not going to be a whole lot of having to manually water anything right now, which is great. It's what I love about drip irrigation. But I will check on you guys later. Thanks for joining me today. And remember, in a world full of hate, be a light. Take care, everyone. Bye.